guys, welcome to a new video from me. Today we're going to be doing my November TBR. These are all of the books that I would like to get to in the month of November. And in November, we focus on nonfiction, the highest nonfiction books on my TBR according to Goodreads. Let's get into it. The first book that I have to talk about isn't the highest rated, but it is my book club pick, so I want to get that out of the way. So in case you're watching this just for the book club pick, it is Know My Name by Chanel Miller. This is a memoir. If you don't know who Chanel Miller is, because during her court case she was known as Emily Doe. If you remember the Brock Turner case from around 10 years ago, he was a swimmer at Stanford and he raped Chanel. And there's just so much, like, this case took the nation by storm. We are now seeing Chanel take the story, tell her side of the story, and as this quote here from the New York Times Book Review says, reclaims her name and her story. So that is what she's doing here. She's talking about what it means to be a victim, and that a victim is so much more than just that word. This is what we are reading with my book club over on the Fable app. It's linked down below. That's where all my spoilery thoughts will be. That's where you're here first. You might not see my review first there, but I am annotating, and I am doing the audiobook as well because Chanel does narrate her own audio. The book that is actually the highest rated nonfiction book on my CBR according to Goodreads is The Only Plane in the Sky, An Oral History of 9/11. This is by Garrett M. Graff, and this also was a New York Times bestseller. So I do think with nonfiction, a lot of the times the title is pretty self-explanatory, but I will read the back just so y'all can have a little more info. Held as remarkable, incredibly evocative, and compelling, and an oral history at its finest, Garrett M. Graff's The Only Plane in the Sky is the most vivid account of the September 11th attacks yet, comprised of never-before published transcripts, recently declassified documents, and original interviews and stories from nearly 500 government officials, first responders, witnesses, survivors, friends, and family members. Here's a profound and searing portrait of humanity on a day that changed the course of history in all of our lives. Now, what drew me to this book is, again, 9/11. I don't want to say it's one of my favorite parts of history, but it's a part of history that I always go back to, and I want to know as many people's stories from that day as possible. I'm getting kind of emotional thinking about it because they were taken from us in such a violent and awful way, these innocent people who were just going about their daily lives, and I want them to be remembered, hence the, saying never forget. And reading these books, reading as many of these books as possible, watching as many videos of survivors as possible, it keeps their stories alive. And I just think that's such an important thing to do, because this event happened when I was a toddler, and I think it's really what set the course for a lot of my generation, like millennial, Gen Z generation. It really set the course of our lives, of what the political landscape, world landscape would be, international affair landscape, what that would be for our lives. This event is what did that. The highest rated nonfiction book on my TBR according to Goodreads is Invisible Child: Poverty, Survival, and Hope in an American City by Andrea Elliott. This one was winner of the Pulitzer Prize, and we are staying in New York, the 9/11 book, and now this one. This, I think, is really powerful of how you can see like the Empire State Building, you can be in one of those huge glamorous cities. So when I think capitalism, when I think of the West, I picture Times Square. I'm not a huge fan of Times Square because it is very overstimulating, but I do think everybody should go once. But besides the point, this girl here, we will get to her name in a minute, Dasani, she is living in New York City in poverty, because as I said, a lot of people, when they think of New York, they think of the glitz, glam, lights. They don't realize that, okay, it's the largest city in America, there's 8 million people there. I'm going to tell y'all, the vast majority are not living in glitz and glamour. But we will see the back of the book, what this is about. In Invisible Child, Pulitzer Prize winner Andrea Elliott follows 8 dramatic years in the life of Dasani, a girl whose imagination is as soaring as the skyscrapers near her Brooklyn shelter. In this sweeping narrative, Elliott weaves the story of Dasani's childhood with the history of her ancestors, tracing their passage from slavery to the Great Migration North. The last book that I completed was The Warmth of Other Suns, which is about the Great Migration, so that's, good transition here. As Dasani comes of age, New York City's homeless crisis has exploded, deepening the chasm between rich and poor. She must guide her siblings through a world riddled by hunger, violence, racism, drug addiction, and the threat of foster care. Out on the street, Dasani becomes a fierce fighter to protect those who I love. When she finally escapes city life to enroll in a boarding school, she faces an impossible question. What if leaving poverty means abandoning your family and yourself? I think this is going to be such a powerful story because I think so many people in America can relate to this. And I know a lot of people now are against empathy for whatever reason. But I believe in practicing radical empathy, and I am very privileged and have never been in a situation that Dasani is in. And I think it's so important to put yourself in the shoes of others just to understand why other people are the way that they are, what that situation is like. And reading, nonfiction and fiction alike, is a great way to do that. And it's one of the main reasons why I encourage everybody to read. I also want to say a lot of these books I found through last year, the New York Times did a really big article. I think it was 4 weeks long. They were doing the 100 best books of the century so far, since we're 25 years into the century. And a lot of these books were, I love how I say that. And then the next one is one that I discovered on TikTok from Michael Kist. But this one is How the Word is Passed, A Reckoning with the History of Slavery Across America by Clint Smith. This one was winner of the National Book Critics Circle Award for Nonfiction. It's also a New York Times Book Review 10 Best Books of 2021. Also, it was a monthly pick at Barnes & Noble, so a lot of stickers thrown all over this cover. Again, I did learn about it through Michael Kist, and this I just think sounded super interesting, so I'm going to read some of the back here for y'all. Beginning in his hometown of New Orleans, Clint Smith leads the reader on an unforgettable tour of monuments and landmarks, those that are honest about the past and those that are not, that offer an intergenerational story of how slavery has been central in shaping our nation's collective. This widely acclaimed exploration of the legacy of slavery illustrates how some of our country's most essential stories are hidden in plain view. Informed by scholarship and made vivid by the story of people living today, How the Word is Passed is a stunning work of reflection and insight that offers a new understanding of the hopeful role that memory and history can play in making sense of our country and how it has come to be. Also, something that I've picked up on recently, memory and history, are they the same thing? History, I feel like, is set in stone. It's fact, and memories can be twisted. But then we have a lot of people who try to rewrite history. Very interesting to think about. Let me know if y'all, what do you think the correlation between history and memory are? Because memory is what you believe history to be. And history is a memory in a way. I did not expect to go into this deep discussion with you guys here. But this one, there's so many times, especially with the statues and all, where the monuments and landmarks, as it was saying, not living in the South, you hear about all the time. And I want to hear what Clint Smith has to say about that. Next, we have my graphic novel pick of the month, and it actually happens to be a nonfiction one as well. This one is kind of our controversial one of the stack, and this is Sapiens, A Graphic History, The Pillars of Civilization, Volume 2 by Yuval Noah Harari, David Vandermeulen, and Daniel Casanave. I have read Volume 1 before. People are like, did you read Volume 1 before Volume 2? Yeah, I did. Don't worry, I'm not going in blind. And I have read Sapiens. Now, Sapiens is the one that is very controversial. A lot of people don't like that book. A lot of people who read nonfiction. Now, I personally did really enjoy it, and it, I think, changed up my outlook on a lot of things. Now, I think it's a great place to start if you are wanting to know about anthropology. And I can see why maybe people who are really into it already, into history already, just wave it off because they're like, yeah, that's just really simple. We all know that already. But I think it's a good stepping stone. It's a good doorway, a gateway into anthropology, because it will make you ask a lot of questions, and therefore you will go look up those questions, and it will bring you to other books and other subjects and videos and whatever else. So I do think it's a good way to get into anthropology. That's just my personal opinion, and if you have a different one, that's a-okay. I do not mind. I think it's great how there is graphic novels of that book, because a lot of people they don't want to sit down, and read a book that's just words. Again, that's fine. And here they can, get a book that is in pictures and just a little bit of words here and there, rather than just pages long of words, because everybody learns differently. Accessibility is what I'm trying to say, that everybody is different. And I do think it's great when there can be a nonfiction book in so many different formats, so it can just reach a greater outreach of readers. And the last book is one that I think I heard about it on that New York Times list, but it might have been on TikTok as well. I'm not really remembering where I heard about it. I've seen it in several little free libraries, which is super cool. And I was like, man, I wish I would have known that before I would have bought it. But that is Just Mercy, A Story of Justice and Redemption by Bryan Stevenson. This is, again, a 100 notable books from the New York Times Book Review 2014, and it is now a major motion picture. And let's see what it is about. This one is about the criminal justice system in America. From one of the most brilliant and influential lawyers of our time comes an unforgettable true story about the redeeming potential of mercy. Bryan Stevenson was a gifted young attorney when he founded the Equal Justice Initiative, a legal practice dedicated to defending the poor, the wrongly condemned, and those trapped in the furthest reaches of our criminal justice system. One of his first cases was that of Walter McMillan, a young man sentenced to die for a notorious murder he didn't commit. The case drew Stevenson into a tangle of conspiracy, political machination, don't know that word, and legal brinkmanship, and transformed his understanding of mercy and justice forever. Mercy, mercy, mercy. That's another one that we could get into a deep discussion on, mercy and justice, as it said. And there is a movie for this. I do not know who's in the movie or anything. That's something, when y'all read a book that has a movie adaptation, do y'all look into that first? Because I like to save that till after I finish the book, so I can be like, oh, this is what this person's supposed to look like, or things like that. I would be interested to know how y'all go about reading a book that has been adapted to the screen. But yes, my main reason why I read nonfiction, because I did have somebody make a comment the other day. I think it's so important to educate yourself on just all different walks of life. And as I was talking about empathy earlier, that's a reason. But I think it's just so important to know what is going on in the country, in the world, in your community. I think it's important to know, and I want to know as much as possible. And one of my goals being a human, being here on this earth, is to learn as much as I can about all different kinds of people, all different kinds of things. That's my goal in life, is to learn as much as one can, as much as this brain can handle. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you made it all the way through, leave a Thanksgiving, and if you're not aware of Thanksgiving, just leave a food emoji in the comments below. And as always, comment, rate, and subscribe, and don't forget to ring that notification bell to be notified when all my videos go live. I'll see you in my next one. Bye! If you are familiar with my videos, you're used to seeing Sherman at the end of them. Sadly, Sherman has since passed away, but I would still like to encourage you guys to help your local shelters. Sherman was at the Darlington County Humane Society in rural South Carolina. I always have their link down below in the description if you guys would like to help them, but also help your local shelters as well. You can do that by donating, sharing posts like this one, volunteering, fostering, and adopting, which it's great to do all of those things. Great to help your community, great to help the animals in your community, and I cannot recommend it enough. All of my pets were rescues, they were strays or from animal shelters, and I love them so much, and I know how much love they can give, so knowing these pets at the shelter can equally give that much love, it's amazing. And y'all should totally take part and help out those local animal shelter pets. and please help them.